Hey, today I will be talking about symbols. History of man is and was throughout history rediscovered in the symbolic images and myths that have survived ancient man. We do learn from the events of historical times, but we do not treasure them as we do statues, designs, temples, or languages that tell of old beliefs. Other symbols are revealed to us by the philologists, so people who study the history of languages, especially by looking closely at literature, and religious historians who can translate these beliefs into understandable modern concepts. And these are brought to life by the people who study humanity or cultural anthropologists, as they can show that the same symbolic patterns can be found in the rituals or myths of small tribal societies still existing, unchanged for centuries on the outskirts of the civilization. These researchers have done much to correct the one-sided attitude of some modern people who believe that these symbols belong to the peoples of antiquity or to tribes and are therefore irrelevant to the complexities of the modern life. Today, if anyone claims to have seen a vision or is hearing voices, that individual is not treated as a saint or an oracle, but more like he is mentally disturbed. While we read the myths of the ancient Greeks or some folk stories, we fail to see the connection between them and our attitudes to the heroes or dramatic events today. But the connections are there, and the symbols that represent them have not lost their relevance to the mankind. The human mind has its own history, and the psyche retains many traces left from the previous stages of its development. So when it comes to symbols, consciously we may ignore them, but unconsciously we respond to them and to the symbolic forms, including dreams in which they express themselves. To explore symbols, it is important to acquire a wider knowledge of their origin and their significance. In more ways than we realize, messages that are carried by symbols, our attitudes and behaviors are influenced by them. The history of symbolism shows that everything can assume symbolic significance. Natural objects like stones, plants, animals, mountains, or valleys, man-made things like boats or houses, or abstract forms like numbers, square, triangle, or circle. The whole cosmos is potentially a symbol. Man, with his symbol-making tendency, unconsciously transforms objects or forms into symbols, thereby endowing them with some psychological importance and express them in, let's say, religion or visual art. For example, stones had a highly symbolic meaning for ancient and primitive societies. Rough natural stones were often believed to be the dwelling places of spirits and gods and were used in primitive cultures as tombstones, boundary stones, or objects of religious adoration. And their use may be regarded as a primeval form of sculpture, a first attempt to invest the stone with more expressive power than nature or chance could give it. Another example is the symbol of the animal. Now, animal pictures go back to the Ice Age between 60,000 and 10,000 BC, and they were discovered on the walls of caves in France, Spain, Africa, and Scandinavia. And even today, a strange magic seems to haunt these caves that contain the rock engravings and paintings. The Paleolithic cave paintings consist almost entirely of figures of animals, whose movements and postures have been observed in nature and rendered with great artistic skill. However, there are many details that show that the figures were intended to be something more than just naturalistic reproduction. Some of them suggest a form of hunting magic. In a way, what happens to the picture will happen to the original. The underlying psychological fact is a strong identification between a living being and its image, which is considered to be the being's soul. And this is one of the reasons why some people even today stay away from being photographed. When it comes to animals, a large number of myths are concerned with a primal animal, and some of them must be sacrificed in the cause of fertility or creation. And one example of this is the sacrifice of a bull by the Persian sun god Mithras, from which sprang the earth with all wealth and fruitfulness. In ancient religions, animal attributes are ascribed to the supreme gods, or the gods are represented as animals. So, for example, ancient Babylonians translated their gods into the heavens in the shape of the ram, the bull, the crab, the scorpion, the lion, so the signs of the zodiac. The Egyptians represented the goddess Hathor as the cow-headed, the god Amun as ram-headed, Thoth as ibis-headed, or in the shape of a baboon. The Hindu god of good fortune Ganesh has a human body but the head of the elephant. Vishnu is a boar. Hanuman is an ape god, and so on. One interesting fact about Hindus is that they do not assign the first place in the hierarchy of being to a man. To them, the elephant and the lion stand higher. Greek mythology is full of animal symbolism. Zeus, the father of the gods, approaches to the female he desires in the shape of a swan, a bull, or an eagle. In Norse mythology, the cat is sacred to the goddess Freya, and the horse and the raven are sacred to Odin, also known as Wotan. As for the symbol of the circle or sphere, this one may be explained as a symbol of the self, as it expresses the totality of psyche in all its aspects, including the relationship between individual and the whole of nature. Whether the symbol of the circle appears in the primitive sun worship or modern religion, in myths and dreams, in the mandalas drawn by Tibetan monks, in the spherical concepts of early astronomers, it always points to the single most vital aspect of life, its ultimate wholeness. An Indian creation myth relates that the god Brahma, standing on a big 1,000-petaled lotus, turned his eyes to the 4 points of the compass, and this fourfold survey from the circle of the lotus was a kind of preliminary orientation, an indispensable taking of bearings before he began his work of creation. Or a similar story is told of Buddha. At the moment of his birth, a lotus flower rose from the earth and he stepped into it to gaze into the 10 directions of the space. In this case, the lotus was 8-rayed, and Buddha gazed upward and downward, thus making 10 directions. And this symbolic gesture of observing was the most concise method of showing that from the moment of his birth, the Buddha was a unique personality, and his further existence was given the imprint of wholeness. Other than just the circle, in the visual arts of India and Far East, the 4 or 8-rayed circle is the usual pattern of the religious images that serve as instruments of meditation. In Tibetan Lamaism, richly figured mandalas play an important role, and these mandalas represent the cosmos in its relation to divine powers. Many of the Eastern meditation figures are geometrical in design, and these are called yantras. A common yantra motif is formed by 2 interpenetrating triangles, one point upward and the other point downward. Traditionally, this shape symbolizes the union of Shiva and Shakti, the male and female divinities, and this can also be seen in countless variations. The 2 interpenetrating triangles have a symbolic meaning similar to that of the more common circular mandala, and they represent the wholeness of the psyche or self, of which consciousness is just as much a part as the unconscious. Abstract mandalas also appear in European Christian art, and some of the most beautiful examples are the rose windows of the cathedrals. In non-Christian art, such circles are called sunwheels. They appear in rock engravings that date back to the Neolithic epoch before the wheel was invented. And I should say here that the square, rectangles, and rhomboids appeared as symbols just as often as circles. Magic object and the secret soul of things developed in the minds of painters throughout history, and many of them had their sayings about objects that seem to recall the old alchemical concept of a spirit in matter, believed to be the spirit in and behind objects like metal or stone. And this spirit, again, is the unconscious, and it always manifests itself when conscious or rational knowledge has reached its limits and mystery sets in, because people tend to fill the inexplicable and mysterious with the contents of their unconscious, projecting them, as they were, into a dark, empty vessel. The feeling that the object was more than meets the eye found a most remarkable expression in the work of the Italian painter Giorgio de Chirico, who was a mystic by temperament, a tragic seeker who never found what he was looking for. And on his self-portrait from 1908, he wrote, "And what am I to love if not the enigma?" He was also a founder of so-called pittura metaphysica. His works revealed the ghostly aspect of things. The use of symbol in a way enriches our lives as we begin to understand the dual nature of existence, the inner and outer life. For example, a simple lamp may signify the light or the truth. So seeing objects in this symbolic way allows us to live more harmoniously as we unravel the universal truths of existence. Symbols represent an idea that may be difficult to express solely through words. And this is it for today. This video is actually an introduction for the next video, which will also be about symbols, but about symbols of the occult. On a completely different note, I want to share something with you, and I'm sure that most of you are familiar with the online marketplace called Temu. This name means team up, price down. And I was influenced, but not by the internet or the influencers, but by my neighbors to check this site. Now, in my area, we all have gardens and pets, and everyone around me was buying interesting products from this place. So I went to see what I have to offer, and of course ended up purchasing many different things. But the one item I want to share with you today is this one, this aluminum and metal sign, which says, "This is what I do. I read books, I drink tea, and I know things." And this was very funny to me because this is exactly what I do most of the days whenever I have even a little bit of free time. And this is what my place looks like. There are books everywhere. So I do not drink coffee, but I am a big tea drinker. And at this point, I can say that I am a tea connoisseur. I only drink specific types or kinds of tea. And today I want to share one of them with you. So this is Mugicha tea or barley tea. And a little bit of history. During the Heian period in Japan, grain was used as a staple food, which led to the productions of powdered flour and wheat. And this wheat was boiled in water to create a hot drink, and this can be considered to be the origin of mugicha. This tea is extremely popular in Asian countries like Japan or Korea, especially during the summer. It is also fairly inexpensive, and this one comes in the form of large tea bags like this one. And one of these tea bags is meant to be put in the water pitcher in either preheated water, usually on 90 degrees, or in the cold water and left for a certain amount of time. The taste is very nutty and light. It has mild flavor. This tea is free of caffeine. It should be drank unsweetened. It has many health benefits. It is also safe to drink it in large quantities, and some people, including myself, drink it instead of water. So it's good for the digestion, it relieves constipation, it is a natural antacid that helps to ease heartburn, enhances the immune system as it contains vitamin C, prevents tooth decay, improves blood circulation, and can be helpful in the journey of weight loss. A quote for today is by Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was an American essayist, lecturer, philosopher, aphoristic writer, a prolific poet. He became most widely known man of letters in America, and while he was writing about the Greek philosopher Plato, he asserted that every book is quotation and every man is quotation. And one of the quotes I like from his works and is related to the topic of today's video is, "We are symbols and inhabit symbols." Thank you for being with me today. Please subscribe, press a like button, leave a comment below, and I will be seeing you in a couple of days. Bye.